Rachel, thank you so much for coming on Going Deep with Erin Watson.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start off by talking just at the core what Subtl Beauty is. It's the company you founded, but you brought your first product to market very recently. And just in basic terms, how do you explain the company and the idea that it was founded upon?
Yeah. So Subtl Beauty is, in essence, making it easier for women to do their makeup on the go. So statistically speaking, most women today are doing their makeup, during their morning commute or once they get to the office, or just in various specific situations. I have an event after work, therefore, I'm going to do my makeup at 4 p.m. versus 6 a.m. when you typically would. And so we wanted to make it easier for women to go about this new way of life, by providing them with a stackable, compact solution that can fit in, even their smallest bags and take with them on the go. So women can come to our website and build, completely customize their own portable makeup stack, and it has everything they need to get the job done, I guess.
And the genesis of this idea, like really the essence of starting this company is you were kind of tinkering with finding your own solution and using contact solution containers.
Contact cases. Yeah. So I needed something more portable, something that could fit in really my small crossbody bag. And, once you get into the depths of 3 or 4 makeup products, it's way too bulky to do so. So I was just kind of playing lab in my kitchen and taking makeup out of their original containers and just transferring them into smaller contact cases.
Gotcha. And kind of speeding things up a little bit more to the present after showing it to friends, after validating it, you ran a very successful Kickstarter campaign. It sold out, I think, in 2 days, or you hit your goal in 2 days?
Yeah, it was just over 2 days, so I can only say it was under 3 days.
Under 3 days, fair enough. That is in the life cycle of a startup, one of the major signals of this has legs, this has viability. What did that do for your own psychology as it pertains to how you came to the business? Like, was that a stepwise increase in confidence? Was that just more validation I knew all along? Where were you psychologically as it came to running that campaign?
That's a really interesting question. I don't think that it made me feel any less nervous about the idea or excited about the idea. I think there's so many emotions going on throughout the entire process of building a business that I really, truth be told, I feel like it compounded during the campaign. It was just everything.
Everything was like more extreme or more intense.
It was like everything I'd been feeling, thinking, believing, assuming, guessing, just amplified during the Kickstarter month. And so it was really great that we now had customers, but I think I had been so nervous about the launch. Once we launched and, got all those pre-orders, my nerves just switched to now I'm nervous about delivering the products. So, I don't know that there was any feeling of relief during that time, but I might be the only one.
Absolutely. That's so it's interesting that in terms of where things stand right now, like before we started this interview, you were showing me kind of how you assemble these so they can be ready to be shipped out.
Yeah.
And that's like just one of the general multitude of hats that you have to wear when you're getting something off the ground. Mm-hmm. But one of the angles that you came to this through was through the perspective of having a background in e-commerce and understanding the marketing of actually getting this product out there. Because there's one side, which is assembling it, manufacturing it, finding the components that actually make the physical product, but also getting this in front of people, not just for the campaign, but generally ongoing. You need to continue to sell these and fulfill them. Can you talk a little bit about the background that you had leading into this and how that's translating into how you think about selling Subtl Beauty ongoing?
Yeah. So my background, since graduating college has primarily been around the e-commerce and digital marketing side of things. I kind of went back and forth between the two industries until I realized that I think what I loved most about, digital marketing is being able to measure this very kind of arbitrary thing, which is like convincing someone of an idea and then to a point where they purchase. And I loved, the idea of measuring that. And so, marrying digital marketing with e-commerce was kind of my ultimate, like my dream job, you know what I mean? So I think that's where my passion lies. And I think that's what's really helped me stay focused, keep my head in the game at this point of the business, because I've been at this for, over 20 months now. And, the entrepreneurship game is a longevity game. So to think that I'm only just now getting to dip my toes in what I'm truly passionate about really speaks to, how far I can take this.
Absolutely. And you were, before starting this, it was kind of like a side hustle for a while before you made that flip into doing it full-time, fully invested.
Yeah. I'm a risk averse person. So, and I have a high capacity for work. I'm fortunate enough to have found what I love and have pursued it, right out of the gate, right out of college. So, to me, I didn't build Subtle Beauty to exit the corporate world. I really enjoyed what I did on a day-to-day basis. But, I am risk averse. So I wanted to make sure that I was asking the right questions and measuring the right data to ensure that it would be a safe move.
So I had someone actually texting me earlier this week, basically about that exact question, like, when do I leave? What is the point? And it's basically impossible to convey via text, but what I was trying to explain was like, there's not like an answer to that question. There's not a, like, when savings equals X amount of like how much time how much you will spend on a month, then you're ready. There's no like just singular answer to that. It is very much your preference. So you like have that awareness. I'm risk averse, so I needed maybe a few more ducks in a row versus the person who's like, screw it, burn the bridges, let's go, and like there's no plan. Do you get asked that question? What advice do you give in that pretext?
I haven't been asked that question, but I feel like that is one of the most asked questions.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts and I read a lot about this, and that seems to be everyone's question. I think it just all depends on your situation. So, for example, I was working on Subtl from 6 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. every single morning, and then going to my day job and then taking meetings from 6 until 9 or 10 p.m. And I did that for 18 months because I could do it. I had that capacity to kind of operate that way. But, someone with a family may not be able to give that kind of time. They may need to make certain sacrifices. And so I guess my decision point was, I got to a point where I wasn't fully giving myself in either because I was trying to do both. And I do take pride in my work. And so, it's kind of it's a crappy feeling when you're not doing so hot in either. You're just not benefiting your day job and you're not benefiting your company. So something has to give. So I guess the long answer to your question is where's your giving point? And maybe if you're still asking yourself, maybe you're not there yet, But I do think you'll know in that moment. But it's never an easy decision,
So I do something similar, which is just listen like constantly to podcasts of other entrepreneurs and study and nerd out on it. What did those fail to prepare you for? Because you can listen, and then at some point you're like, oh snap, I'm like in it, and there's no context. Like I just have to figure this out.
I love this question. I've been sitting on this idea for like a couple of weeks now, and I think all of the messages that are being sent to, entrepreneurs in the making, or people who want to be entrepreneurs, just everyone kind of playing in this space. The message is do, work hard, work faster, and then you'll get results. And I think that message is for a particular kind of person, a person who may need a little more motivation to get from point A to point B. What I think there's a large group of us missed in that messaging who do kind of work in that overdrive mentality as a default, and we need to be told to slow down. I think that not enough people talk about this kind of waiting period of you can only do so much. Now you have to leave it up to time. Does that make sense?
So injecting more patience in the situation, or also a question of like take some time to sit and think versus just being in a state of action. Is it both? Is it more one than the other?
It's definitely both. But I do think patience is, kind of the higher point here.
What are you most impatient about right now?
Sales. And I'm in the state of testing, and I had decided that 2019 would be the year of testing. It's really important to do that. So of course with testing, I'm using Google Optimize, and I love Google tools, but it tells you, it's like, don't end this test yet. We know that, one is clearly leading. Wait until you have X amount of users go through this test. And it's just like little things like that. And you just want to kind of, you want to make a bunch of changes. You put out an email sequence and maybe one person failed the email sequence. And so all of a sudden you want to, change it immediately, and you just need to have patience.
Because if the sample size isn't big enough, then the results of that experiment actually aren't that valid or that informative.
Right.
And it just takes time to accomplish that. So explain in a little more detail the testing and just like, what does it actually mean more practically? Like 2019 is the year of testing. Therefore, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for Subtl.
So I have a couple of goals, for the business, and, I wanted to break them down into, more actionable items. And one of them was increasing our on-site conversion, to industry standards. So one of the first moves we're making is we're conducting a usability study of 20 different people in person testing the desktop site, testing the mobile site, to understand if the current build flow is intuitive. Does it make sense? And we're going to potentially do a redesign based off of, the outcome of those tests. And then that will really kick off the complete redesign of the website, because the way that we launched it was kind of based around standards and assumptions. The building flow of this stack is very unique. There's not a lot of websites out there that has this kind of workflow to fall back on or to research. So we were really making assumptions on, okay, well, how would I go about this, if I was building this for the first time? And so now it's like, okay, that was our MVP. That was our website MVP. Now let's really do the work to understand how people actually want to purchase, and let's give that to them, give them that experience. So that's one way that we're testing and optimizing. Another way is advertising. So where are our customers hanging out? How do they like to receive content? Whether that be organically or versus Facebook ads, Facebook and Instagram ads, video versus, flat static images, even down to headline text or features. I test absolutely everything that I do.
I want to talk about how you're going about testing the advertising, like outbound marketing side, but I want to first go back and just restate what you said about the website, and just if there's more meat on the bone there. So because this product that you've created is not just like one single thing, that's not the right way to say it, because it's not one single like vertical of product, and you're assembling the entire thing together. The process of going through and picking the custom solution for the bronzer, for the lip cheek, for the concealer is novel to the general world of not only selling makeup, but just even frankly, like buying a product that has modular components versus like an all-in-one type of solution. So you're probably actually studying outside of the makeup industry for how people put together a modular product and then try to take best practices from that and bring it into the makeup world, or is that not an accurate assessment?
No, that's absolutely accurate. We're introducing a concept. So I actually look to subscription, like big subscription services and how they explain their service as guidance for how we should be explaining subtle beauty. So like at a landing page level, I love looking at the way that Dollar Shave Club communicates, the way that Stitch Fix communicates, and both of those are outside the cosmetics space. But once you get into the level of choosing your product and shade, our customers fall back on what they know, which is being able to see swatches in really in-depth detail about, the texture of the product, how it's used, maybe a video, comparing shades and like all of this good content. But that falls outside of, what we imagine as the build flow. So you kind of need to marry the two, the more traditional way of purchasing a makeup product online with this the stack assembly, and how can we bridge that gap and make it seamless?
Because there's one side of like, are we creating a piece of media that communicates, hey, I'm comfortable, or I want to put that physically on my face, which is about as intimate as it gets.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, we want to maybe just in like the way we go about pricing it or the way we go about talking about it or even just where it's positioned on the page, incentivize someone to set up so that they're subscribing to get a new one of these every 3 months, 6 months, 1 month. Well, I don't know how frequently you're aiming for there, but.
So point of clarification. So we aren't subscription, but rather we look to subscription services. Like I think they do a good job. Well, they have a tough job of explaining what it is they do. Like take Stitch Fix, for example.
Right.
Are you aware of what Stitch Fix does?
My girlfriend works for Stitch Fix.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
We should talk about that. But so it's this idea of someone else picks out your clothes and mails it into you with all of your sizes. Mm-hmm. That's a weird concept, much like when Uber first came out. That was a weird concept. So the companies like that have to do a lot of work of explaining, here's what it is, first of all, here's why it benefits you. And we have that similar kind of hurdle where we have to first explain what this is and then explain, why you should use it. Whereas other cosmetic brands, here's a tube of mascara. You already know what it is.
Right.
So that's already taken care of. Then they can just focus on why you need it. And so we have to provide content that covers both without overwhelming the customer.
So you really have to be concise and focused, because just to use another example of that, if I'm saying, we have a different type of grill, it's the better grill, it's the cheaper grill, it's the all aluminum grill. I already know what a grill does. I put meat on it, it cooks. But in this instance, it's wrapping the mind around like, oh, I need a travel solution for, and I'm sure you have better, like more optimized language for this, but this travel solution for all the different type of makeup that I might need to put on.
Yeah. And even, kind of combating assumptions about the product. It's travel size, but we have full size products in there. It's travel size, but you can throw it in your purse and apply it at a red light. We're not promoting it. It already happens, but You know what I mean? It's kind of looking outside of what the cosmetic industry is already providing and saying, no, this can do so much more than that. Also, it's this new kind of product. Also, the formulations are really great for you too. So there's a lot going there.
So that's like I'm going to verbal meme now, but like they have the thing of like, what is design versus what is UX? And it's like the sidewalk at a right angle. And then there's like the clearly walked path that cuts off the right angle and like cuts it off. People are either nodding or like, what the hell are you talking about, Aaron? But like what you had this initial vision for it, both in your own use of the product, but as you get feedback from the people that you fulfilled for through the Kickstarter campaign, what have you seen in terms of how it ends up being used versus maybe what the initial vision was?
Yeah, so there's definitely a correlation between my personal use and now what our current customers are experiencing. So, this was really supposed to be a solution that I came up with for two specific instances: sleeping at my boyfriend's house and traveling, as a consultant that summer, making it easier to travel. What it ended up turning into, as soon as I got my, proof of concept, and then ultimately, our first sample, I found myself using it every single day. Using it right before happy hour, even using it just in the morning instead of my regular makeup. And I thought, okay, I'm clearly using this outside of the original use case. And so it's funny, during our first launch, so our Kickstarter launch, I tried to convey that, and I had a hard time combating the just travel size mentality. So I kind of let it go, because I figured maybe it's just me. Now that I have customers, I'm slowly watching them experience that same situation. So it usually starts with a trip. They go on a trip and they use it, and it's great. And then they find themselves continuing to use it instead of their regular morning products, because it is so compact and it's so portable, and it's just everything you need. So it makes it really easy to get ready in the morning. So it's been kind of fun to see that play out.
Gotcha. And so back to, you talked about the two types of testing, on the advertising outreach, just get more people aware of this. I only, in the most tangential sense, know about beauty bloggers and YouTube channels where literally all they do is apply makeup to themselves. But these are massive, industry moving, disrupting forces that, just weren't really present even a decade ago. In terms of, you talked about advertising, you talked about your own content. Influencers are one of the other hot topics for marketing these days. How are you thinking about those? Like maybe how you're thinking about testing them, and maybe how it's gone so far. I know it's early in 2019 still.
No, I've done a lot, trust me. So we launched our first influencer campaign this month. I have the nerdiest spreadsheet, because truly the influencer world is like the wild, wild west. There's no standard pricing. No one's sharing metrics and ROI. It's just a guessing game. And so I have the spreadsheet where I use about 3 different tools to populate that spreadsheet with data, and to basically get it down to engagement, cost per engagement. And I can kind of calculate that. And I'm in the process now of reviewing our results and seeing if my assumptions or if my predictions are correct, and then just adjusting the spreadsheet from there. So that's the testing that I've been doing in the influencer space. And then, as far as advertising outlets, I've actually been testing Facebook ads since this summer. Our first set of ads was really trying to generate leads to get them excited about our pre-launch. And so I've been collecting data on Facebook ads since May or June. So I have, again, really nerdy spreadsheet. I've gotten a lot better at testing, making sure I'm only testing one variable at a time, making sure that I get the ad set, or at least each individual ad, to 1,000 impressions prior to reviewing the results, knowing how to turn off a specific ad within an ad set if it's already reached that 1,000, so that the other ads can catch up, and then I can measure. Because just because they haven't gotten the impressions that the winning ad does at that time doesn't mean that it's not going to outperform the perceived winner. So just things like that.
So you're clearly experienced at doing that, in addition to being effective at it. How does being in a constant state of testing, A/B testing, this for the other thing, does that lead you to be very, very, it's very easy for you, maybe you thought that this was the one, and you're very is it easy to let it go because the data's just not backing it up, or is it still hard to negotiate that, like, man, I really thought that like that was going to be the one that was going to work, and then it like blew up?
I had my first experience with that. It was maybe January of last year was when I ran my first ad. It was on the old product design. We just done a photo shoot in December, and I had photos that I like loved. And then I ran an ad on them, and my favorites didn't perform as well as, the photos that I was like, okay, I just threw up there for fun, But, the data doesn't lie. So you just have to let it go. And I think that was really hard at that point in time, like the first experience. But I've experienced it so many times that I think, it's gotten easier to let it go. But, now I'm utilizing different Facebook groups, and I'm throwing up 2 images, and I just say like, choose your favorite, and things like that. And so I guess maybe I'm just overexposed now. It's just very mechanical for me.
Gotcha. I think that's a very because you can almost err to the degree of being completely impersonal or dispassionate about it, and not even getting excited about maybe the new creative that's being put together. It doesn't sound like that's necessarily happening, but can you see it like erring, almost like overcorrecting in that direction?
I could, but I take lessons from, I guess, each outcome. So, if one image performs better than another, I'm like, okay, well, why did it? And I ask questions, and I figure out what is the reason that this image is better. And then I get excited about, future images that we can create and assets that we can create. An example being, I had a hero video that was just outperforming everything that we had in terms of our advertising content. But I had a couple of comments saying that, well, she's not really using the makeup in the video. And I was like, well, that's a really good point. It was like our 7th take. She had like layered it on. And so, we got a little bit lazy with like forcing her to just apply every single time. And so I'm like, okay, like that's they're correct. So it's somebody who I don't know who's coming into, leaving a comment on our video, calling us out. And that can be hard, but instead of wallowing, I grabbed a friend and grabbed her iPhone, and we reshot a video in 2 hours, and it is now a top performer.
Wow.
So making sure you can learn from, some of those, I guess, like harder, pieces of feedback, maybe is the best way to describe it, but yeah.
Feedback as it pertains to the actual physical product. Has the physical product changed since the Kickstarter or in any recent capacity, or is it pretty set in terms of how that's structured?
So it hasn't changed yet. So what I've implemented is a product feedback survey at a certain point in your purchase path. So once a customer purchases the stack, once they receive their stack, so we get a notification that they received the stack, and then that sets a timer in our email marketing platform. And then I believe it's 7 days after they receive product, we send an email requesting feedback, and it's all centered around the product specifically. So I have surveys post-purchase. How was your website experience? I have it on the unsubscribe page. Like, I'm pulling in feedback left, right, and center.
Yeah.
But this one is specific to the product. And so far I've gotten a ton of feedback in already. And what that's helped me do is create a roadmap this year for our product development. Much like our website feedback on the thank you page is going to help drive our website roadmap, this will help drive our product roadmap. So I'm not guessing, you know what I mean? The customers are deciding what we do next.
Can you share what's like at the short-term next steps for the product roadmap?
Well, we've already talked about this, during our Kickstarter, but expanding our shade range, this has come up, quite a lot. And so that's going to be one of our first initiatives for our concealer, is to expand that range. There's potential for reformulating on one of our products. We're still waiting for all the data to come in, but we're getting some pretty consistent feedback on just some slight tweaks that we could make. And I think while I still have a very small set of SKUs, I can use this time to optimize the actual formula before really kind of blowing it up.
Gotcha. Well, I feel, I don't know, getting a call from my mom here. Jeez. I don't have the deepest understanding of using makeup specifically, but I find the general process that you just happen to bring to this industry and this product specifically essentially timeless for any industry, any vertical. The high consumption of data and feedback, the willingness to iterate in every single instance of the business, being something that is applicable to any entrepreneur out there in any way, shape, or form. I actually think that is the biggest thing that I notice in our conversations is that kind of precision, for lack of it's more than precision, but that like capacity for that iterative process, that willingness to go through it, and just frankly the experience that you've had from doing it now for I think 20 months ongoing. If there has to be some sort of natural proclivity for that, but generally entrepreneurs that might be struggling with that component of like the meta process of what advice would you give, or like how would you recommend starting, whether it's a resource on A/B testing or just how to even wrap their head around that to a greater degree?
So I think it's about creating good habits. So for me, I think the reason that I'm testing all of these different kinds of things, and I'm so in the weeds on every single kind of aspect of this, is I now that I am working on Subtl full time, I use that 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. window to be a sponge to information. So I sit down with a coffee and I read just everything. I'm not a big like book reader, but I have newsletters that I subscribe to, like specific to marketing. I have blogs that I like. I listen to podcasts on my way to the office. I'm constantly taking in information, marketing information, product information, trends, like e-commerce trends, e-commerce case studies, you name it. So I always have, I always start my day with just all these creative ideas that I could be implementing in the business. And so, I have a running list. And
any specifically that you want to shout out as particularly just crucial or essential or valuable?
Yeah, I really love the Daily Carnage, which is awesome because it's Pittsburgh based. I think Shopify, from an e-commerce perspective, the Shopify blog is fantastic. I like Adweek, although some of their content is like a little too meta in the grand scheme of things. What else? And then podcasts, I like Marketing School with Neil Patel. Each of them are like 5 minutes long, super easy to consume. And then there's a couple of others that I can share, but those are the ones just, top
Absolutely.
of mind.
No, that speaks to their significance if they're the ones that come to mind when we ask the question. This has been fantastic. I think there's a lot of not only just actionable ideas for entrepreneurs to walk away from this conversation, but also just in terms of a position that doesn't usually get covered. So like, the How I Built This podcast is very much backwards looking. And it's like, this is what I did. And like, we were, eating ramen and then the call came type of narrative, which is fine. But what I sincerely enjoy about producing podcast episodes like these is you are like, we got you out of the office. You're surrounded by boxes and like the assembly. We're going to leave. You're going to go back into the action there. And to just not only be generous enough with your time to come and do this, but to be generous with the experience that you're in right now, I think is really valuable for a lot of people. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, yeah, no.
People are going to want to follow along. I want to make sure they check out all the digital coordinates that you deem important. So where can we direct people?
Yeah, so we're really active on Instagram, Subtl Beauty, SUBTL Beauty. And then you can also check out our website, subtlbeauty.com. And then, if you want to reach out to me personally, I'm not super active on Instagram because I'm so busy on our brand, but It's really lame, so no one make fun of this. It's just Rachel.Reid25. I know.
How dare you?
I know. But if you want like raw behind the scenes stuff, like on Subtle, I'll be posting I posted a selfie today, like, oh, it's all Subtle today. And then like on my real post, it's like, I'm operating on 5 hours of sleep.
Respect. I know which one I have a preference for, but people can choose their own adventure. Before we let you go back to action, Rachel, want to leave the audience on the note of action. So I'm going to give you the mic one more time for a personal challenge for the audience.
Yeah. Honestly, to start your day with consuming information. I think that learning is so important for entrepreneurs. You may be so in the weeds on your specific product or business. And I just think keeping perspective and continuously seeing new ideas, I think, is important for all of us. So starting your day with that. Also, it's super energizing. Like, I then work out, and it's so hard to just put, my pad and pencil down to work out instead of just jumping on my computer and starting and, trying all of these things. Yeah.
I've had the experience many a time of 7 a.m. on an elliptical, listening to some sort of podcast, oh, that's a great idea. And I'm trying to get my notes out as I'm not falling off the treadmill.
Definitely, last week I was on the treadmill and I tried taking notes. I was listening to a copywriting course, and I'm in looking back, I can't read any of my writing. I have no idea why I thought that could work.
Respect. So segment both of those, but that's a great way to start the day. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
We just went deep with Rachel Reid. Hope everyone out there has a fantastic day.